All right, today is Washington's farewell address. If I tell you farewell, what does that mean? It's a way of saying goodbye. So, to recap, I'm going to go to the very front of your packet. You've learned about Washington's leadership, just some basic words you can use to describe Washington, which would be understanding, effective, um, and he showed that in the Whiskey Rebellion. We found out the cabinet members that Washington chose. We learned what the word president means. Then we know that Washington was the first president that took over the country when they were super in debt. So he had Hamilton come up with a plan to get the United States out of debt, and Hamilton had a bank plan. We were able um, to also see the arguments against that. Why did Jefferson, what part did he not like? He didn't like the bank portion of it, whereas small farmers and large farmers didn't like the tax part of it. We learned the origins of political parties, which we didn't really need to dive deep into. Um, but we did, because why do we in the end have political parties? We were able to fill this triangle in, and it should be TJ and Alex, political parties, eco, and bank. That right there is going to make your life so much easier. So we learned about the basics of political parties and that TJ and Alex basically caused them. And then today is Washington's farewell address. Do you notice how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our lessons all were Washington? Guys, it's an obvious thing. He's the first president. Everything he does is going to be a big deal. Now we're after today, we're not going to talk about presidents as much. We're going to talk about the event. See how it doesn't say there's nothing with the president, because usually in all of this the event is bigger than the president himself, which is why we don't learn by president after Washington. Alrighty, so today Washington's going to say goodbye. He's going to give some advice that you'll have to memorize. It's tested all the time, but most students do just super well on it. And then actually, this will come back and we'll talk about it again. We talk about what foreign policies are, which we'll do a little bit today. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back down. You will go, or you're still on Washington's farewell address. Okay, so you need to be able to summarize his advice. In his farewell address, he gives advice. He's leaving and he wants to give advice on how the country should run once he's gone. Okay? So first, let's kind of relate this to us. So here's what I want you to do. You are going to pretend that you are the president of the student council, and you have to travel to the middle schools like Barber and Lobet or Dunbar, and you have to give a speech about being at McAdams. So you're going to simply fill this in here. Okay. So during my time at McAdams, and you're going to talk about the things you did at McAdams. So maybe I made a lot of friends. I played on a particular sports team. I was in art. I whatever. Just give me finish that sentence with how your time was while you were at McAdams, and you can make it totally truthful. What's your advice? What is your advice to those sixth graders that are going to be seventh graders next year? And come to McAdams for the very first time. What is your advice? Is there something? It could be, look, it could be as simple as when Miss Thomas says to you, or if you have this teacher, or um, my advice is to always be at school at time, or make sure you're at school every day. Give someone, and literally, it's just one sentence. And then tell them what they should not do. Don't eat the pizza in the cafeteria. I don't know. Don't um um whatever in a certain class. Maybe don't take a certain elective that you didn't like. Um so what is something that they should not do, okay? Don't use the boys' bathroom. Ew. So, anyways, piece of advice to of something they should do, and then always remember to what's something they should always remember to do when they come to McAdams. And in the end, and that's just where you summarize it. So, in the end, I was at McAdams for 2 years and enjoyed it, kind of enjoyed it, and excited to go to high school. blah, blah, blah. But remember, you're giving this speech to the sixth graders, and you're the president of student council, so pretend, to, be positive. Now, here's where I'm throwing in something extra. You got to use some big words. Here they are. I'm going to read them to you. I want you, if you're in my first period or my sixth period, I'd like you to use 5 of these words. If you're in any other class, I'd like you to use 2. But please, if you're in my third, fourth, fifth, or seventh, and you want to use, more than 2 of these words, you go right ahead. Don't let me limit you. Okay. The first one, it says predominant, which means the strongest or main element. Conduct, behavior. Y'all get conduct grades. You know that. Conduct grade, that's your behavior in the class. Has nothing to do with academics. It's just your behavior. Motive, that's a reason. Like, what's the motive he murdered her? What's the reason? An alliance, we've talked about this. That's a friendship, a group member. Foreign means another country. Your fortune, it's like your luck, your future. Defensive means to protect. So that is when you are protecting somebody or yourself, maybe, or in sports, it has a whole nother meaning. Political means relating to government. Obligation, if you're obligated to go to the birthday party, that means you're committed, you feel the need to go. Neutral, stay in the middle. You don't pick sides. You're saying neutral. So if 2 of your friends are arguing, you're not picking sides. You're listening to both points. Consistency means to stay stable, stay the same. If you are consistently late, you are always late. I had a student consistently late to my first period, so I had to call home. I have a student consistently not turning in their assignment, so they had to keep getting consistent zeros. Inviolate, free or safe from injury or violation. Commercial means trading or making a profit, making like a big profit. Endeavor means to attempt to achieve a goal. I'm off on my endeavors, my future endeavors. So attempt to achieve a goal. Now, don't use a word. If I even explained it and you don't know what it means, don't use it. Okay. So, for example, during my time at McAdams, let me just think real quick. I had many alliances in 7th or 8th grade. So I'm saying I had many friendships. So let me just say this. The point is I want you to sound smart. So use 2 of these words so you sound smart. But even I had to stop for a second and think how I was going to use it. Okay. So try and use 2 words. If you can only end up using 1, that's fine. But the point I'm trying to make here is sound smart, use some big words. Okay. So you're going to give your speech. The teacher will pause the video, give y'all, about 5 minutes to do your speech, and I want y'all to read your speech to someone next to you. Now, sometimes, or all the time, I'll have a student who has a really, really good one. So if they do, the teacher in the classroom can walk around, take a look. And if you think yours is really, really good, I'd love you to read it out to the class because some students it comes natural and or it's entertaining. Okay. But make sure you're being respectful and school appropriate when you write this, okay? Pause the video now and get started. Okay. I'm excited to go back and read some of those when I see them. Okay. Washington's farewell address. Why would I have you use those words? Well, first off, he used every single one of those words in his speech. And here's part of it. You're not reading the whole thing. These are George Washington's actual words as he is no longer going to be president. If you notice, there's some in bold. They're rewritten down here in bold. Okay. And so here's what you have to do. Is some of this going to be hard to understand? Yes, it is. But you know what I always say, even if it's hard to read, you can't have, you may get this one sentence on your test. Reading something hard should not be done while you're taking a test. You should already have read hard things in class. So here's what I want you to do. I want the person on the left to read this one. The right, read this paragraph. Left, read this paragraph. If you're not sure on how to pronounce a word, no big deal. Who cares? Just kind of skip it and keep reading. Okay. Like I said, there's still words I'm like, wait, what is that word? Um, but you've got to read it out loud. Now, remember that Washington is very dead. I will say, I mean, because he's dead, he can't say anything else. And on your test, I've had multiple times where part of one of these sentences is on a test, even on a STAR test. That happens because he's dead and he can't say anything else. And so people use what he's already said. This is a famous speech. So you're going to read that out loud. Step 2. You're going to have to explain it to me in simpler terms. We've done this before. So, the great rule of conduct. What is that in simpler terms? Well, here's your answers down here. Got it, guys? Your answers are here. Match it in simpler terms to what's here and literally just write it right next to it, okay? So all you're doing is categorizing again. They'll only be used once. So once you use one, I would cross it out once you've used it. Okay. Work with a partner, read these out loud, and then categorize it into simpler terms. So when I read what's off here to the right, I can understand what advice that he's trying to give. Now, I typically would walk students through this. Go ahead and try with your partner first. It'll probably take y'all 7 to 10 minutes. If you're unsure of exactly where to put some of these, ask someone next to you. Please work together. If there's 3 of you, 1, 2, 3, as far as reading the paragraph, and work together. So your answer choices I'm going to read to you. Stay away from best friends. Have very little government connections. We need to get stronger for longer. We need to move forward without being interrupted. Stand tall and be ready to fight if needed. The reason is because our country still needs to learn and grow. Use best friends only when you're in a bad situation. Oh, that sounds bad. We need to take charge of our wealth. A big rule of behavior. So, maybe, and then look, conduct. The answer is here. Some of these big words I already have for you on the previous page. So use that if you need. It'll help you get the answers. So if you go through and take conduct and write behavior, political, right, relating to government, if you go through and cross out some of these, it'll help you get these answers way easier. Okay. All right. Pause the video now and complete this assignment. Okay. I love it. So I love his speech, and I'll show you how exciting this is. So, write a sentence summarizing George Washington's the advice George Washington gave to the new nation in 1796 when he says goodbye as president. Okay, let me explain the excitement of this. So he says a big rule of behavior. He's fixing to tell the United States and the United States government how to behave. So he's saying the great rule of conduct, a big rule of behavior. As little political connection as possible. Have very little government connections. Steer clear of permanent alliances. If I say steer clear, there's a cow in the road. If we're driving down the road, steer clear means move out of the way. So George literally says to steer clear of a permanent. What if I say you are permanently banned from this classroom? What does permanent mean? Like forever. And we said alliance means friendship. So stay away from permanent friendships. So which one did this go? Stay away from best friends. Well, George, why you sound so mean, George? Why are you saying stay away from best friends? And he's going to explain. So far, a big rule of behavior. Have as little government connections as possible. Stay away from best friends. Respectable defensive posture. The one this went through, stand tall and be ready to fight if needed. So respectable defensive posture. So don't look like a wimp. Stand up. Look strong. Just because you are ready to fight and have weapons and you are prepared does not mean you want to fight. We don't want, the United States doesn't want to go to war, but don't be an idiot. You have to at least be prepared. He says, trust to temporary alliances for extraordinary emergencies. Use best friends only when in a bad situation. Geez, George, you want me to use someone? And by best friends, he means alliances, other countries. So he's saying steer clear of like major BFFs, but trust other countries. Like we have alliances today. But at this time, he's saying only trust temporary alliances when you for extraordinary emergencies. So let's say we're being invaded by two countries at once. Well, okay, now we're going to go get our best friend. I know that sounds bad, but he's just saying only if you really have to use another country should you use them, or else stay away from them. He says a predominant motive, a main reason, has been to endeavor to gain time to our country to settle and mature. Now, George, you're making sense why you told us to not have government connections, stay away from best friends, use other people. And he says, here's the reason. We need time for our country to settle and mature. The reason is because our country still needs to learn and grow. We are young, dumb, and broke. And I should have this written up on a poster if you look to the right in my room. If it hadn't fallen down, young, dumb, and broke. Some of y'all say young, dumb high school kids. It's a song. But they are young, dumb, and broke. The United States. We are young. We are a very new country, one of the youngest on planet Earth at this time. We are dumb. We don't know how to run a country yet. We've already written an Articles of Confederation Constitution, which sucked, and we had to write a new one, which is better. And we are broke. If your friend is having some issue, um, if you yourself don't have yourself together, how can you help a friend? You can't. So he's saying we need to settle and mature because we are young, dumb, and broke. And if you remember that when George was president, the United States was young, dumb, and broke, you'll get several answers correct. So I'm going to say something and you're going to repeat it. During Washington, the United States was young, dumb, and broke. Okay? Hold on. I'm going to say it one more time. You repeat it. Ready? While now I just forgot what I said. Oh, uh, while Washington was president, the United States was young, dumb, and broke. Go. Okay. While Washington was president, the United States was young, dumb, and broke. Don't forget that. Hopefully, the poster is still hanging up to the right to help you remember. Okay, to progress without interruption. We need to move forward without being interrupted. You will get less young, dumb, and broke if you can continue to go to your future without being interrupted. Strength and consistency. He is saying we need to get stronger for longer, and we want command of its own U.S. fortunes. We need to take charge of our wealth. So here's the deal. A rule, and it's still a rule today. If you have an alliance, if you let's say someone is hurting your friend, like they're beating them up, you want to help them, right? So if you either call 911 or you do something physical, you do something to be able to help them. It's a rule in this world, if you are in an alliance with another country and they are attacked, you are to help them at war. So the problem is George is saying, don't, if you just don't, if you're in no alliances, you don't have to help anybody at war. So steer clear of other countries so that we as the United States can get better, because we are young, dumb, and broke, and we don't want to be dumb and broke. And the only way to do that is to stay out of other people's crap and focus on ourselves. You got it? He's trying to give advice. Okay? That is his advice. All right. So George's advice is, I like to say, the United States. I'm going to get rid of this real quick and then I'll undo it. The United States is young, dumb, and broke, and we need to focus on ourselves. I could have worded that in a million other ways, but I'd like to put that. His advice to the United States is young, dumb, and broken. We need to focus on ourselves. That's what he was trying to say. So steer clear of other people's problems. Get your mind, get yourself out of other people's drama and worry about our own country. Okay? Yay, George. So you're successful if you can tell me the United States was young, dumb, and broke while George was president, and his advice was to focus on ourselves and oh, this is bugging me, so I can get it back to the way I had it and forward that. Okay. I'm going to tell you this: steer clear of permanent alliances is a famous line. See it all the time. Little political connection. See it all the time. I'm just going to give you a little foreshadow. Watch this. Oh, the very last lesson. We're going to do it again because another president is going to give his advice on how we should deal with other countries. And so, by the way, what this is called is foreign policy. Foreign means other country, policy means rule, other country rules. So, George gave it in his farewell address. That's where he gave that advice. But now every single president after George Washington also gives their advice. They don't do it in their farewell address. They actually do it in something called a doctrine, which we'll talk about that later when we listen to somebody else's doctrine. So, okay, Washington's farewell address is his foreign policy is in here, which is how to deal with other countries, and that is his foreign policy, his other country rules. Here's a picture of his actual copy. It even says how Alexander Hamilton helped him write that first one. Alrighty, so this should be all done. I kind of did it with you. So that is Washington's farewell address. Steer clear of other countries. Have little political connections. You should have that all done. And that is it for Washington's farewell address.